Hello and welcome to the Advanced English podcast. This episode is going to be like the episode I made about having to do something. I don't really have anything interesting to talk about today. There's no issue or subject that's on my mind that I want to talk about. Maybe while I'm recording, something occurs to me. Maybe an idea comes to mind, something that interests me, something I want to talk about. But until that happens, I'm going to make another episode trying to use a variety of language to describe some things that people do in their lives, some things that people do in their everyday lives. So, yesterday, I went to the Christmas market. I'm living in Germany, and in most German cities and towns, there are Christmas markets at the end of the year, starting in late November and going through December. There are Christmas markets. So yesterday, after finishing work, I went to the Christmas market. I went straight from work to the Christmas market. I didn't come home first. I went straight there from work. I went there to meet with a friend. So we met up at the Christmas market. I didn't particularly want to go to the Christmas market, but I wanted to meet with this friend, with this person. So we met up at the Christmas market. It's because the Christmas market is in and around the city center. So the city where I live has a center, a central area, and it's at any time of year, the center is a good place to meet because it's a place that everyone knows. So it's easier to meet there than to meet somewhere else, maybe. It's a common meeting place. So me and my friend decided to meet in the center. And because it's December now, because it's the end of the year, at the moment, most of the city center is full of Christmas market. So most of the city center at the moment is the Christmas market. So we decided to meet up at the Christmas market. I'm stumbling a bit in my speech, when someone is drunk, when they've drunk a lot of alcohol, a lot of beer or wine, and they've gotten drunk. If they try to walk, they might stumble. They might not be able to walk very well, and not fall, not they could, maybe they fall over, they fall to the ground, but maybe it's not so bad. Maybe they just stumble. They stumble around a bit. They can't walk so well because they're drunk. Stumble. And when you're talking, I guess you can also stumble a bit. You can stumble on your words. You can try to say something and it doesn't come out right. So you stumble. You're not fluent. Your speech doesn't flow. There are, I guess, a lot of different reasons why people stumble, both physically walking and while speaking. But I was stumbling. Hope that's the right word. Anyway, I was stumbling. I stumbled because I was trying to think of a way to show you, to demonstrate to you the difference between meet and meet up. These two words that have a very similar meaning, a very similar use, and I don't want to explain to you the difference. I don't think I could, even if I wanted to. I don't think I could explain to you the difference. When you say you're going to meet with someone, and when you say you're going to meet up with someone. Because I think a lot of people could give you some definition and a few examples that show you when to use one and when to use the other. I don't think that's a good approach to language learning, because I don't think that's how you really acquire the ability to speak using those words, because all it does is allow you to think about the differences, and being able to think about something doesn't help you in acquiring the ability to speak with it. So I was wanting to, without pointing it out, to use the two words naturally, use them in the context of what I'm saying to you, so that you would, in the course of the conversation, while I'm speaking, hear both words used in different situations, and the situations where a native speaker like me would naturally use them without thinking about it. But that's the problem. I started to think about it. And as soon as I start to think about it, then the language stops, then the speech stops flowing. You get in your own way. That's another expression. You can get in your own way. Maybe there's lots of things that you're capable of doing. Lots of things that you can do very well. But sometimes you get in your own way. You start to think, you start to worry, maybe you get nervous or anxious, and you can't do something so well that normally you can do very well. You know, if you're not thinking about what you're saying, you probably speak very fluently without any worry. You just say what you want to say. But maybe when you start to think too much, it becomes difficult, because you're thinking too much about how to say something rather than just allowing it to happen. So I got in my own way. I started to think too much. I got in my own way. I didn't allow myself just to say whatever I was going to say. I started to think. Thinking is good, but I think for language learning, it's not necessary because you think you should think about what you want to say in the sense of the meaning in your own language. As a native speaker, often you have to stop and think about what it is exactly that you want to say, because the meaning, maybe you suddenly realize that the meaning that you don't really know exactly what you want to say, but which is good, because it's not good to be saying lots of stuff that doesn't actually mean anything. A lot of people do that. I do it as well. It's very normal. We start speaking and we don't stop to think about what we're saying actually means. In everyday speech, when you're just talking about basic things, the things around you, the physical objects around you, what people are doing, you don't need to think so much. It's very easy to express meaning about simple everyday things. But often we talk about more complicated things, and I think certainly it occurs to me, it happens to me, that I suddenly realize what I've been saying doesn't really make sense, maybe. It's not really clear. People could interpret it in a lot of different ways, and I think that's pretty normal. So often it's very good to think about what you're saying, the content of what you're saying. Is it really useful, what you're saying? Does it describe accurately the meaning you had in mind? Does it help other people to understand the world around them? Does it help others to understand what's going on around them? Does it have a clear meaning? In that sense, in that context, thinking is very good. To stop and think is a good habit. It's a good habit to speak less and to first, before you speak, stop and think about what it is exactly that you want to say, what you want to get across to the people listening to you, the meaning, the message that you want to get across to them. But on the other hand, thinking too much about the form of what you're saying, how you're saying it, isn't very good, I think, because all it does is make you get in your own way. If you're a native speaker, for most things, you know perfectly well how to express them, how to say them in that language. And if you start thinking about correct and incorrect pronunciation or correct and incorrect grammar, you're not going to get any better results because of that thinking, because of that worry, because what matters is how understandable what you're saying is. It matters if what you're saying is understandable to the people listening to you. And that has nothing to do with correct grammar or correct pronunciation in the sense of how we learn in the classroom or in a language course. If a native speaker speaks correctly, their grammar is correct, their pronunciation is correct. They can speak a bit slower or a bit more clearly. They can say the words a bit more clearly, a bit slower, like I'm doing now, to make it easier to hear, to make the sounds easier to hear, but the form, the grammar of what they're saying is correct. There is no correct grammar, except the grammar that produces language that is understandable. I've gone way off course here. What I'm talking about now has nothing to do with what I was talking about before. I've gone way off course. I've gone way off track. A ship sailing or traveling, a sailing ship sails, but I guess modern ships that don't have sails, a sailing ship sails. It uses the wind to move itself. It sails with the wind or using the wind. But modern ships don't have sails. They don't sail in the ocean. I think you just say they travel. They travel. Boats travel in the ocean. And they can go off course. Maybe a ship has a course. It has a route. A route that it's going to take from one place to another. The way it will go, the way it will get from one place to another. Its course. But it can go off course. It can go off course. It can start to go a different way than was planned. And what I'm saying isn't planned, but I had some ideas about what I wanted to talk about, but now I'm talking about something completely different. So I've gone off course. I've gone off track, because a person walks on a track or a path. A path or a track. They don't have a course. A ship or an airplane has a course, but a person walking, they're on a track or on a path, maybe. So the person can go off track. You can go off track speaking as well. So I've gone completely off track. So I was talking about meeting with a friend in the Christmas market. So I don't know, maybe my friend wanted to go to the Christmas market. Maybe that was part of the reason why he wanted to meet with me. Or maybe the Christmas market was just a convenient location for us to meet. We could have met. He wanted to meet with me and I wanted to meet with him. We wanted to spend some time together talking. And the Christmas market was just a convenient place to meet up, because both of us knew where it is, where it was, where it still is. It's still there today, and it was there yesterday when we met up. So we met at the Christmas market. And we caught up, because me and him, we hadn't seen each other for maybe nearly 2 months, maybe more than 2 months, I'm not sure, for a while. Yesterday, we saw each other for the first time in a while. So we caught up. We caught up. Catch up. When you catch up with someone, you're making up for lost time. Because if you meet with someone very regularly, if you meet with someone every day, then you never catch up, because you never have anything to catch up on. If you never have to make up for lost time. If you haven't seen a friend in a while, you haven't talked to them, you haven't heard anything about what's going on in their life, then when you meet up after a while of not seeing each other, then you have the opportunity, then you have the chance to catch up with each other. Catch up on all the things that you would have said to each other if you had been meeting regularly. If you had been seeing each other often. So all those different things that me and my friend, who I met up with yesterday, all the things we might have said to each other in the last 2 months, if we had been seeing each other regularly, we had to try and catch up on all those things yesterday. You can also catch up on work. If you're a student in a school, maybe you're sick and you miss a lot of your classes. A student, not a university student, a student in primary school, if they're young, or if they're a bit older, in high school, they have to go to class every weekday, 5 days a week they go to class. But let's say they're sick, they've got a cough, they're sick for 2 weeks, they're so sick that they can't go to school, and they're so sick that they can't do the work at home. The teacher can't send them the work that the student is missing, because the student is so sick for 2 weeks. They're sitting at home, they're at home lying in their bed. They can't even get out of bed because they're so sick. And of course, if they're that sick, they can't do much school work. They can't concentrate well enough to think and work. So when they're better, once they've gotten better, once they've recovered from their sickness, and go back to school, they might have to catch up on the 2 weeks of work that they'd missed out on all the exercises and work, schoolwork and homework, work that they have to do at home. They might have to catch up on all of that, get it done, and then continue on with the normal work, the new work that they get every day. You can catch up on many different things. You can catch up on work. You can catch up with friends, like I did yesterday. I caught up. I got a chance to hear about some of the things that have been going on in my friend's life in the last 2 months, because I hadn't had the opportunity to hear about them. So we caught up. We caught up. Do you ever catch up with friends? Friends you haven't seen in a long time? Friends you haven't seen in a while? Do you ever catch up with them? Meet them after a long time of not seeing them? Maybe there's also a place where you meet. See, I'm having trouble again because again, I'm starting to think how I can find things to say where I'll use both meet and meet up. And I think it seems to be a bad way of approaching it. A bad way of trying to demonstrate to you the difference. Because it's something you've got to listen to, 2,000 hours, 3,000 hours of English, I think, to get a very fine distinction, to acquire such a fine distinction such as meet and meet up. And I could spend a lot of time trying to explain it to you, but I think that would be fake in a way, because there's so many different situations where you could use it in, where it's appropriate, and so many different reasons why it's appropriate in one situation and not in another. So I'll stop there. I don't know. I think I thought before doing this podcast that this idea I had of speaking about the Christmas market I went to yesterday would give me something to talk about for a long time. I thought I would have a lot to talk about with this idea, but I guess not. Most of the time I've been rambling. I've been talking about unrelated things. So I'll stop the podcast here. I hope this wasn't too excruciating to listen to. When something's very, very painful, it's excruciating. It's excruciatingly painful. But something can also be excruciating because it's utterly boring, or, if someone is forcing you to listen to something, or if you're forcing yourself to listen to something that's actually really boring, maybe it's excruciatingly boring. So I hope this podcast is useful, and that it's not too excruciating to listen to. I hope it's not too excruciating to listen to me stumble around trying to figure out what I should say. Because a fluent speaker, someone who's speaking about something very interesting and they just go on and on and on because it's so interesting what they're talking about, and it just flows out, that can be very interesting to listen to. But having to listen to someone that's stumbling around and not really sure of what they're trying to say, that can be pretty boring. It can be, if you have to, like for example in school, if you're in a class and your teacher is stumbling around with no real idea what they're trying to say, and they're just saying nonsense, and it's dull and uninteresting and boring, but you have to sit there because you're the student, you have to sit there and listen to it, it can be excruciatingly boring. I remember that from from school. Well, I don't have to remember it because sadly it's still the case in university. There's a lot of very excruciatingly boring and uninteresting lectures. All right. See you in the next podcast.